unemployment, resulting in a fall in the levels of poverty, improved social services, and expanded social protection for poor and vulnerable households. However, the pandemic caused massive disruption to people's lives and affected the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in areas such as poverty reduction, good health care, quality education, decent work, and economic growth. St. Kitts and Nevis's new National Development Planning Framework, which guides the country's development planning for the next 15 years, is well aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals and the government's vision for the country to become a sustainable island state. People and prosperity. St. Kitts and Nevis's economy bounced back positively from the pandemic. Tourism and its ancillary sectors have rebounded sharply, contributing to real GDP growth of 9% in 2022, after contracting 14.5% in 2020 and 0.9% in 2021. The government is resolute in its pursuit of initiatives to diversify the economy, targeting sustainable agriculture and food security through the establishment of environmentally friendly green villages, regenerative tourism focused on building resilience and the sustainable use of our resources, and developing the green, blue, and orange economies. We have intensified our transition to renewable energy through the integration of solar power, and we are well on our way to achieve geothermal energy production on Nevis by 2025. Lessons learned during the pandemic highlighted the importance of social protection in post-pandemic recovery, including strengthening household resilience and skills relevant to the emergent labor market. The government's top priorities are improving health and well-being, building social cohesion, and protecting the most vulnerable, mainstreaming gender, youth, and persons with disabilities across all policies and initiatives, and improving the access to affordable education. Planet. Despite our minuscule contribution to global carbon dioxide emissions, St. Kitts and Nevis is extremely vulnerable to climate change phenomena. Several cyclones and hurricanes have affected our country since 1950. With about 15.2% of the population living in low-lying coastal zones, the threat of storm surge and sea level rise is real. Drought has been identified as a critical hazard, making water scarcity a significant challenge. Given the centrality of groundwater sources to the national water supply, protecting this resource and improving water conservation are crucial. To increase and diversify water production capacity, St. Kitts and Nevis will require international support to introduce new technologies and methods, including desalination, in the short term. St. Kitts and Nevis remains committed to environmental sustainability and resilience. As a signatory to several climate change-related international agreements, we have integrated climate change mitigation and adaptation into our development planning. Our updated, nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement pledges an ambitious 61% reduction in carbon dioxide emissions by 2030 and sets out a wide-ranging program for climate change adaptation, for which improved access to climate finance will be pivotal. Peace and partnership. The safety and security of the residents of St. Kitts and Nevis continues to be top priority. Over the past 10 years, major crimes have declined significantly through a comprehensive crime management strategy, including the build-out of social intervention and rehabilitation programs for deeper impact, along with the modernization of security infrastructure and reform of the judicial system. We are proud of the work done to establish a modern and far-reaching good governance framework with a focus on anti-corruption, integrity in public life, and freedom of information. Both domestic and external partnerships have played a catalytic role for St. Kitts and Nevis to successfully advance on the SDGs. However, accelerating SDG implementation in line with our Sustainable Island State agenda will require even more strategic and impactful partnerships. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis is committed to working hand in hand with our private sector, civil society, and regional and international partners to fully integrate the SDGs into our medium-term development planning. With this renewed collective ambition and concerted effort, St. Kitts and Nevis commits to leave no one behind.
How do you act for the SDGs?
I act for the SDGs by supporting our local market and stocking up on nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables.
We act for the SDGs when we clean up after ourselves when liming on the beach, to reduce litter on the land and in the sea.
I act for the Sustainable Development Goals by recycling natural material from my organic farm to responsibly create nourishing, cruelty-free products.
I act for the SDGs by creatively charting my own course as an artist and entrepreneur.
I act for the SDGs by partnering to minimize waste and fulfill the No Plastic Mondays promise.
I act for the SDGs by exercising regularly to maintain good health and well-being.
We act for the SDGs by coming together to have a voice so that our issues can be represented in national policy, development, and planning.
I act for the SDGs by diversifying and expanding education to visualize inclusion.
I act by implementing sustainable agricultural practices such as hydroponics, ground cover, orchard farming, and all those things that you've seen outside.
I act by turning off all the lights and electronics in my class at the end of the day and educating my students on the importance of energy efficiency.
I act by producing a healthy organic harvest to feed communities.
We act for the SDGs by making sure to turn off the tap to conserve water when we are washing our hands.
I act by cooking healthy meals and being mindful and intentional about the foods I consume.
The 17 SDGs are our pathways to transformative sustainability. Let's create the future we want to see by acting now for the achievement of the 2030 Agenda.
Pleasant day to one and all. As Minister of Tourism and Civil Aviation, witnessing our destination soar within the tourism industry gives me immense pleasure. My team and I continue to voice the need for increased airlift to our Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, as it is the catalyst that will drive travel to our island, thereby providing economic opportunities for our people. In 2023, I continue to honor my pledge to ignite regional connectivity between our neighboring Caribbean counterparts. I'm extremely delighted to share that the regional air carrier, Caribbean Airlines, will commence services to our Federation on the 24th of July 2023 from Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, en route to Antigua to St. Kitts. I'm also excited that Caribbean Airlines will commence routes from Bridgetown, Barbados to St. Kitts on the 29th of July 2023. The airline will use its 72-seater ATR aircraft for these newly announced services. The impact of this will tremendously be positive for all of us. Our people will have the convenience of island hopping within hours, eliminating the recent challenge of traveling across the region. The restoration of interregional travel to our federation, especially at this point in time, is a major achievement for all of us. My team and I continue to sustain partnerships, ensuring the Caribbean region returns as our second largest source market. Caribbean Airlines has maintained a stellar reputation as one of the leading air carriers in the region. Therefore, I extend my deepest gratitude to their team for extending their hand in partnership to make today's announcement a reality and for their unwavering support. Our tourism industry continues to punch above its weight. More flights mean more heads in bed and new business opportunities, thus indirectly creating more job opportunities for our people. Our people have more places to visit, avail advanced medical facilities, convenience to our students traveling to and from university, and remarkable cultural exchanges between the region. Caribbean Airlines, we welcome you, and we look forward to this great partnership moving forward. I thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sharima Matthew, and it's a privilege to be your chairperson for this crucial community consultation concerning the Federation's 2024 budget. I extend a warm welcome to all of you to this gathering designed to foster inclusive discussions and ensure that every voice is heard as we deliberate on the budget for 2024. I pause to acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Education, Social Development, Gender Affairs, Aging and Disabilities, Ecclesiastical and Faith-Based Affairs, and Housing, the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley. Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs, the Honorable Garth Wilkin. Minister of State with responsibility for youth empowerment and aging and disabilities, social development and gender affairs, the Honorable Iseline Phillip. Ambassadors Leon Natta Nelson and Kenny Douglas, Cabinet Secretary Dr. Marcus Natta, Head of the Civil Service Thelma Richards, Financial Secretary Hilary Hazel, Senior Government Officials, Permanent Secretaries. Apologies for the lateness of the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew, as he's currently at the hospital dealing with an urgent medical issue. Apologies are also in order for the absence of the Honorable Ministers Marsha Henderson, Conwys Maynard, and Samuel Duggins, who are off island on government duties. The Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas and the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark should join us shortly. Housekeeping matters, we ask that all phones be switched to vibrate or silent mode as a show of respect. Before moving forward, please rise for the playing of the national anthem. Following the national anthem, please remain standing as we invite Mr. Agard to lead us in invoking God's presence on this evening's proceedings.
O land, O land of beauty, our country where peace balanced and free on the strength of will and love, with good in all our schools, Saint Kitts and Nevis are a nation bound together with a common destiny. As stalwarts we stand for justice and liberty, with wisdom and truth. We will serve and honor thee. No sword nor spear can conquer, for God will sure defend. His blessing shall forever to posterity extend.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, once again, we as a people and a nation come to you in prayer. And Lord, as we have this event of nation building, we have this event of moving forward as a people, we want you here, Lord. We want you here with everyone here at the front table, with everyone listening. Help us, oh God, to be clear, and let whatever be done, oh God, let it contribute to us moving forward, to us being, for us helping for us to develop as a nation. We need, oh God, these consultations where everybody can have a word and everybody can understand. Lord, help us in everything that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Mr. Agard. So with us tonight, we have 4 individuals at the head table who will take us into discussions for this evening. From my right, I have the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Environment, Climate Action and Constituency Empowerment, Neresia Williams. Then I have Van Roy Agard, who is a statistician within the Ministry of Sustainable Development. Senior Director Lavon Queely is on my left from the Ministry of Finance. And economist Melissa Henry from the Ministry of Economic Development and Investment. The theme, Marching Forward on the Journey to a Sustainable Island State, is not just a slogan. It captures the essence of the government's aspirations, the core of our shared values, and the direction they envision for the Federation. This consultation is not just about numbers on paper or line items in a report. It is about crafting a future that is in sync with the government's shared dreams, values, and aspirations. It is about sculpting a path that serves not just our present needs, but also lays a robust foundation for generations to come. Tonight's hybrid format ensures that everyone, whether here in person or connected online, has a seat at the table. Following 4 enlightening presentations, we'll open the floor to questions and answers. I kindly request that you make a note of your questions as they will be answered during the Inquire and Interact session. Whether you're here in the room or joining from our diaspora, your insights are invaluable. I encourage you all to participate actively, ask questions, and share your thoughts. Together, we are shaping the future of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's embark on this journey of sustainability, inclusivity, and growth together. I now invite the first speaker, Neresia Williams, to share insights on the sustainable island state. She will be followed by Van Roy Agard, who will delve into economic indicators, and our third presenter, Lavon Queely, will explore financial considerations. Concluding the presentations, economist Melissa Henry will provide an overview of the economic development outlook. Ms. Williams.
Good night. Hi, good night, everyone. Kindly allow me to adopt the protocol so ably established by our chair. And I will just proceed to get straight into our presentation. The world population in 2023 at mid-year, according to the United Nations, is estimated at 8.1 billion. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla Motors, has a net worth of $264.9 billion US dollars. That is according to Forbes. This would mean that each person in the world would only receive $33 if it is evenly distributed. While distributing money evenly among the global population might provide a temporary financial benefit to individuals, it wouldn't necessarily address or solve the complex challenges outlining the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The SDGs cover a wide range of issues, including poverty, hunger, health, education, gender equality, clean water, sanitation, climate action, and the like. Thus, there is no single formula for poverty to end, for one to be rich, for one to be fit and healthy, for sustainability to be achieved. My presentation this evening will take the following structure. What is a sustainable island state in St. Kitts and Nevis's context? Why is St. Kitts and Nevis pursuing a sustainable island state agenda? Who is needed to facilitate the sustainable island state status attainment? When will the sustainable island state status be attained? And how do we move the process forward? What is a sustainable island state in St. Kitts and Nevis's context? While economic resources can contribute to progress in some of these areas, achieving the SDGs requires comprehensive and sustainable efforts that go beyond a one-time distribution of funds. Solutions often involve systemic changes, international cooperation, policy improvements, and long-term investments in various sectors. For instance, achieving goals related to poverty and hunger may require investments in agricultural infrastructure, in education, in healthcare. Addressing climate action requires coordinated efforts to reduce emissions, transition to renewable energy, and adaptation to the impacts of climate change. On the screen, there's a beautiful diagram, circular, colorful. Working our way to a sustainable island state means that regardless of your background, you are assured that you would receive fair treatment and a fair chance in life. This means taking the best possible care of our resources, like caring for our water, caring for our forests, so that we don't use them up too quickly or harm the environment and prevent others from having a share, especially those who may not have much to begin with. So what happens if we eat all our snacks, our favorite snacks, in one day? It means that we will never be able to partake of those snacks ever again. Let us pause for a minute. Ever again. If we use all our water, we will not be able to access water ever again. If our forests are depleted, we will never be able to use that forest ever again. Our emissions will be through the roof. We will not be able to survive. Therefore, what about the houses that some of you live in? Would you like to preserve those houses for posterity? You certainly would like to be able to do that, right? Is the country doing well financially? Do our people have jobs? Make good money? Can afford the things they need and want? On the screen, there's another beautiful presentation, and there are some words that are highlighted. System, environmental conservation, economic development, social equity, long-term resilience, self-sufficiency, high standard of living, quality of life. All citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis. So this is the working definition for what is a sustainable island state. Simply put, the definition that is speaking about a way of running our country where we look after nature, make money, treat everyone fairly, get ready for tough times, and make sure everyone is happy, self-reliant, and has what they need. Why pursue sustainable island state status? This on the screen is the global basis for the pursuit of a sustainable island state. Sustainable development goals. There are 17 goals, from no poverty to partnerships for the goals. This is our why. We are not just affected by what happens in St. Kitts and Nevis. The interlinked sustainable development goals address the economic, social, and environment dimensions of sustainable development. But months past the halfway point to 2030, the UN has reported that far too many of the SDGs the world is making about far too many of the SDGs the world is making about as much progress as a taxi crawling along 4th Street on a Friday afternoon. The UN says that 80% of the SDGs progress is weak or stalled or has gone into reverse. Despite the SDG goal to eliminate extreme poverty defined as living on less than $2.15 United States currency, converted to Eastern Caribbean dollars, $5.84 per day. Current projections suggest that more than 500 million people will remain poor in 2030. The world has slid back to hunger levels not seen since 2005. 735 million people are currently facing hunger, up from 613 million in 2019. Unless things change, by 2030, 84 million children will be out of school and 300 million people will leave school unable to do basic reading and writing. So why pursue? The very existence of our country is at stake, given sea level rise, given the heating of our small piece of the planet, given that developed countries, although contributing majorly to the very same challenges we are experiencing, we should pursue not just for survival, but for people to thrive. You have a role to play in the process. An achievement of sustainable island state status would ensure that the numbers for extreme poverty and lack of education do not reflect our realities here. You are here so that our response to this report is you-led and coordinated. On screen, the living plan and evolving vision. Let us pay attention to the moving parts. This means that it is continuous and responsive. Utilization of new and emerging technologies, constant adaptation to economic realities, responsiveness to evolving science, unpredictability and the challenges of climate change, our adherence to the larger frameworks and conventions, a comprehensive consultative process. Why we are here. We need to evolve to the changing needs of our citizenry. Who are the participants? Let us begin with the beneficiaries, because at the end of the day, for citizens and residents, there are benefits to be derived. No matter where you are in the world, you will benefit. The partners and stakeholders, therefore, are to respond to the needs of the beneficiaries. Policies on poverty and climate change are not new, but we will be able to create an unprecedented new goal for this small island state, to create a responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision-making at all levels. In this moment, in this country, the sounding of voices like yours in this room and virtually will ensure progress for families, the foundation of our society. Far from being mere beneficiaries, you can operate at each level of this partnership frame. You can be active architects in the development of this country. You will be engaged in the frameworks and processes that support its implementation. You can tell us as simply as how to avert violence in schools, what a smart school looks like, and the resources that must be dedicated to transform all schools within the Federation to smart schools. Your level of involvement can help to shape outcomes. When will sustainable island state status be achieved? How smart is climate smart? Mobilizing these actions mean that we are motivated to achieve the end goal of a sustainable island state. You can be at the front lines of the electric vehicle transformation. You can be riding a bus to work. Your children can be transported to school via electronic vehicle. A transition that is only possible with our partners' support, with government support. Participating involves transforming our ideas into comprehensive projects. It begins by identifying the actual challenges in your locality, which may encompass issues like drainage, road infrastructure, recreational activities, as well as accessible skills development, hubs or centers for learning essential skills: cooking, sewing, basic plumbing, coding, and initiating eco-friendly businesses. Additionally, community lobbying on projects offers an innovative approach to governance, albeit revolutionary, but paves the way for achieving the esteemed status of a sustainable island state. We know that the power to create positive change lies within the communities themselves. And that's why we're introducing this novel approach to governance. Community impacts on projects. Revolutionary concept, but a step towards achieving our goal of becoming a sustainable island state. By actively involving the community in decision-making, we ensure that the projects we undertake align with the genuine needs and desires of our residents. This participatory approach to planning not only fosters a sense of ownership and pride in our initiatives, but also makes us more resilient, adaptive, and sustainable as communities. Sustainable island state benchmarks. What do we intend to achieve? What do we want? 100% literacy rate, 100% electric vehicles being used by the government, less than 10% of the population below poverty line, more than 70% of energy is renewable, 60% of food homegrown. St. Kitts and Nevis as the #1 Caribbean country with the ease of doing business profile. Do we wish to achieve social and gender equity? Do we wish to have a 3-year GDP in reserves? There is no time to waste. These 7 pillars reinforce the commitment to a sustainable transformation to move away from politics and dysfunction. We were in uncharted territory during and after COVID. Now, we have demonstrated that we can get out of social and economic chokeholds. So, we are making the case for each and every one of you and your household to have a say. We need to hear from you what is acceptable levels of taxation. A sustainable island state will not be free. In the grand scheme of things, beneficiaries usually have to underwrite some aspects of the benefits that are derived. If each household thrives, then the nation thrives. There is competition in the region for the tourist dollar. More and more people who have disposable income are exercising choice in where they spend and invest their money, and are therefore looking for places and people who demonstrate prudence when it comes to their surroundings, stewardship of the natural resources, extending to even to habitats for animals. The good thing is, we do not have to do it alone. We are partners. But what is required for the citizens to buy into the vision? So, how do we move the process forward? These are 5 steps. So, step 1, I have outlined the benchmarks to be buttressed by the pillars. The work of our sustainable island state begins, and here we are, public consultations for national buy-in and awareness. We are halfway there, almost. We are almost there. There's much to be done. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Before we proceed, let me acknowledge the presence of Senior Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs, Economic Development, International Trade, Investments, Industry and Commerce, the Right Honorable Dr. Denzil Douglas.
Hi, good evening. I would like to adopt the protocol already established. And my name is Van Roy Eger, the statistician. I'll be presenting on the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis, marching towards a sustainable small island state. I want to give my apologies on behalf of my director. He couldn't present today, but I'll be presenting in his stead, and he will be online listening. He's off on national duties. So what I'm gonna present on, I'm gonna present on the highlights of the economy 2020 to 2021, then the highlights of 2022 economic performance, the economic forecast going forward, 2023, 2027, and then the Sustainable Small Island State Strategy. So the economy of St. Kitts and highlighting the real GDP in 2020 and 2021, when we had the COVID-19 come into the picture. We had, over those 2 years, 2020 and 2021, a decrease of 15.5% in real GDP, or in other words, 368 million over the period. This is significant shrinkage in economic activity, was attributed to decreases in level of activity in key sectors such as construction, distributive trade, tourism-related accommodation, and transportation services. The level of decline, however, was softened by continued operations of the public sector and economic stimulus packages, over 100 million. If you can see here, in 2017, we had continued small increases in growth rate from 2017 to 2019. And when we experienced the pandemic, that is when we had a significant drop-off, negative 14.6%. From there, the growth rate decreased, but not as significant, to 0.9%. Those 2 years, that decrease is the representation of that 15.5% that I previously mentioned. However, as you can see, now we are above zero. We are increasing the growth rate. It's 10.3% in 2022, and we are estimating 3.9% using indicators of half year for 2023. If you look at IMF statistics, these statistics were as of April. You can compare the decreases, and you can see that the effect on our neighboring countries as for 2020, 2021, and 2022, and 2023. It has basically the same impact. Significant impact in 2020, less of an impact in 2021, and now moving forward, 2022, 2023, as most countries are. I don't know. So I'm not going to go too much into it. If you want to ask questions, the table is there. But you can see the comparison. Just wanted to show the comparison that we are not the only one, and you can see when you compare other countries that, you know, we are doing pretty well coming out of it. One thing that is significant for COVID-19 effects would be the visitor arrivals. If you look at the tourists in 2019, you can see we were up at 122, 338 tourists. And in 2020, you see the big drop off and a smaller drop off in 2021. In 2022, back up there. Excursionists just means people who they don't spend the night. They come by air, they do excursions, and they leave. So, and then you have the cruise passengers, then you have the yacht passengers. So, and if you look at all of these trends, they tend to follow that same pattern. So we're just showing you the significance of what COVID-19 did and how we are now recovering. And if you continue to remember this significance, it would be leading into another slide, the next slide we're coming up into. Employment statistics, COVID-19 impact. So we highlighted a few sectors that are very important to St. Kitts and Nevis. Construction, wholesale and retail, trade, hotels and restaurants, public administration. So all of these would show the number of employees, the annual average of employees. This is from the Social Security Board. The source is Social Security Board, the annual number of employees that we have in these sectors. And it shows the same trend. However, you would realize that in hotels and restaurants, that is where you had most of the significant drop off. And also most of the significant recovery. So we are doing well in that regard. And we need to continue to push that sector. Preliminary GDP estimates 2022, as we are moving on from COVID now into 2022, the economy is estimated to have grown by 10.3% in 2022, following the prolonged impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. This represents the beginning of a recovery following that same 15.5% decline over the previous 2 years that I mentioned before. Our key economic sectors of growth in 2022 include wholesale retail trade, hotels and restaurants, transport, storage and communications, financial services, and public administration. See the pattern there. So I will show you the performance of these same indicators. The percentage contribution of all of them is the first column. It says percentage contribution, which is public administration 10%, financial services 11.2%, transport, storage and communications 10.5%, hotel and restaurants 5.5%, and hotel and retail trade 5.6%. These are very significant when you look at in comparison to the other sectors. The percentage change in wholesale and retail, 23.5%, and you also can recognize the big impact of pushing that hotel and restaurants as it's now 135% increase in 2022. In total GDP estimates, it's 10.3%. The total percentage change of all these sectors is 10.3%. All increases in 2022. Looking at that same, an important indicator for us is really tourist arrivals, as they are a very important expenditure item for us. We have the tourist arrivals. In 2021, we see now it's increasing significantly. In 2022, it's It's now 79,767. We are now having a half-year comparison in the last two columns. The last two columns are half-year comparison, January to June 2022, January to June 2023. The cruise passengers, as we see, moving from 101,897, we're now moving to 502,446, and that is impressive. And that only comes from us having the proper facilities and fostering that ability to accommodate such increases. Average number of employed jobs, 23,065, and 2022, 24,894, and half year, 24,666, and in 2023, 25,385. So it's a GDP growth we're estimating of 3.9% based on the half year increases that we are seeing. Total GDP growth. So preliminary GDP estimates, 2023 now. The same sectors, construction, percentage contribution, as you can see, same pattern. 10.4, 10.2, hotels and restaurants 6.7, 5.6, and construction 13.9. The percentage change, all of these are growth that we are estimating for 2023 based on the indicators we have seen thus far. Construction 0.8, wholesale and retail trade 4%, hotel and restaurants 27, transport and communication 1.5, public administration 8.5. Some notes about what probably is pushing these percentage changes. In construction, you have the uptick in residential construction services. People are now building more, increasing consumerism. For wholesale and retail trade, there's more confidence in the economic market for the businesses to increase their business services. Hotel and restaurant services, we increase airlift to increase marketing efforts and airlift support. Transport and communication, return of cruise ships and passengers in large numbers and increase consumerism again. Public administration, regularization of step workers and new hiring. So the COVID-19 pandemic recovery continues. Well, I say we recovered, but we're pushing to do better. Forecasted GDP estimates. 2022, we had, this is millions, 2,243 million. If we go to the growth rate, in 2022 it's 10.3. In 2023, we're estimating 3.9, and we are also forecasting along the same lines 3.6 and 3.3 and 3.2 all the way down to 2027. In this regard, it's hard to forecast anything. You would not normally see forecasts of significant changes because we can't, certain events we can't predict. So we tend to be a bit conservative in forecasting. So we have, because in any event, the economy of St. Kitts and Nevis is on track to surpass its pre-pandemic GDP estimates level of 2019 by 2024. So we are moving well, and by 2024 we would be back on track to continue our growth rate in that regard. Notwithstanding, there can be other things that can affect us in a negative way. You have the ripple effects of geopolitical tension, wars on the domestic economy. We have a number of wars actually going on right now that affects us. Slower than expected growth of the global economy due rising prices and supply chain issues. All these things are affecting us, affecting our prices. Delays in the start of work on major local construction projects and the impact of adverse weather conditions, severe hurricane floods and droughts due to the impact of climate change. So, we are always avoiding the significant impacts of the hurricane these last few years, but we never know. So, thank God for that. Medium-term economic outlook. Notwithstanding these downside risks, the government is pursuing the transformation of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis into a sustainable small island state. The vision here is to generate jobs and business opportunities and bring improved living standards, to build sustainable economic growth and development, to enhance socioeconomic resilience, and these things are engineered under the 7 pillars of progressive actions that I will just quickly go through here. Pillars: food and security. So the objective here is to increase food availability of good quality and low price, locally grown agricultural produce. The plan is invest in crop and livestock production to boost output and reduce food import bill by 25% by 2025. The green energy transition, which is number 2, the objective is to start the transition from the heavy dependency on fossil fuel to solar, wind, and geothermal alternatives. Investment in the renewable energy with a target of, that's the plan, investments in the renewable energy with a target set of 30% by 2025 and near 100% by 2030. Economic diversification, the objective: enhance policies to promote business development. Plans developed of the cannabis industry, particularly the focusing on research and development. Number 4, sustainable industries. Promote business activities that minimize environmental impact. Implementation of strategic plans that incorporates building climate change, resilience, and gender equality. Number 5, the creative economy. Develop the art forms into viable business enterprises. That is the objective, to develop the art forms into viable business enterprises. The plan is to provide support to the sustainable growth and development of creative arts industry. Number 6, COVID-19 economic recovery. Support the rebuilding of the small and micro businesses in the tourism and agriculture sectors. The plan is to establish a National Small Business Development Center to advance entrepreneurship and small business development. Number 7, social and health protection, enhance health and social safety nets for households, persons in need. The plan is to reform the country's social safety net program to bring fairness and equity, and upgrade the community facilities, including social centers, health centers, and sporting facilities, and also construction of a first-class and climate-smart hospital. Those are the 7 pillars of sustainable small island state. That is my presentation for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agard. While Ms. Creeley prepares or pulls up her presentation, let me acknowledge the presence of the Minister of Sustainable Development, Environment and Climate Action, Constituency Empowerment, the Honorable Dr. Joyelle Clark. For the 2 remaining presenters, kindly be reminded that your presentations should be within the 10-minute limit. This provides us with an opportunity to get as many questions as possible from the live audience and from online. Thank you.
Good evening again. Please allow me to adopt the protocol already ably established. I feel as though we are being discriminated against on this end, but that's okay. We will manage with the time. Now I'm sure some of you have been paying attention, if not all of you, to the debate that took place a few weeks back in the United States Congress, where it was as though the sky was falling because the government was about to shut down. This is because they have not passed an appropriations bill, I think, in over 2 decades, almost 3. They've been doing stopgap measures. There are some among their membership who keep touting the fact that you need to pass a comprehensive budget and a balanced one. I hope they're not doing that simply for their time on TV. I'm hoping that they know what we know here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that the budget is the most important document that the government produces. It provides the opportunity for the government to communicate with its citizens and residents and its partners what exactly it's investing its money towards in terms of expenditure and how it's going to raise the revenue in order to do it and to keep its operations going. And so every year, like clockwork, by mid-December, give and take a few things, we pass our budget. We are always ready for the first of the new fiscal year to get going. And so we are here tonight to have a quick discussion in regards to our budget and the fiscal position that we have. And so quickly, we're going to look at recent fiscal and debt performance, issues and opportunities, key messages and recommendations. Now, I know you've seen a lot of figures from Mr. Agard, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. And so, but I want to highlight, though, what always interests persons is our wage bill. As you can see, it's moderating somewhat. And so we are projecting by next year, it will be 10.7% of GDP. Our debt service is also on a trend to be moderating at 1.6% from last year to 1.8% of GDP. This gives an indication that we'll be managing our debt obligations on how we contract debt. And so this bears out from the percentage rate. And most importantly, our popular statistic that is touted everywhere, which we should be very proud of, because persons did not hesitate to remind us of how high it was, our public sector debt to GDP ratio, which went down from 69.1% in 2021 to 63.2%, and we are expecting it to go below the benchmark, which is the standard of 60%, to 55.4% in 2023. Don't be shy with the applause. We've done well, and we continue to do well. Okay, here we're showing some of the mix in terms of the approved budget for 2023. And you will see, I'm hoping I can see, the percentages in terms of the proportion. We have 10.9% for taxes on income. There is a 1.3% taxes on property, taxes on domestic goods and consumption. I think that's the orange, 9.9%. But as you look at this, because you realize our capital revenue is somewhat shrinking, and so what you should ask yourselves, is this the right mix for us as we move forward? Then we have our total expenditure. I have to mention too that the revenue is not always what persons pay much attention to when it comes to the budget. Somehow persons forget that you have to raise revenue in order to spend. And so a lot of emphasis is placed on the expenditure. So these are our expenditure proportions, where you have personal emoluments, wages, and allowances, which is 32.6%. Goods and services, 24.9%. Of course, we have our interest payments, which you can see, like I said, we've been doing very careful debt management in terms of our contracting of debt, and so you see that is much smaller. Then we have transfers, 22.8%, and capital expenditure, 18.1%. Again, I am asking the question for you to ponder and think about as we go forward in the budget process. Is this the right mix in terms of our expenditure? Issues and opportunities. There is need for us to maintain fiscal sustainability. And so in that context, we have been undertaking several discussions with the IMF and other partners in terms of how we would go about doing that. There have been recommendations made to us in regards to the creation of a growth and resilience fund, where we'll be able to put funds aside for when things are not so rosy. And so that will give us an opportunity to to have a fiscal buffer. One of our other options that we have before us is the development and implementation of fiscal rules. It's a preference that we would have that as done as a legislature, as opposed to persons we just saying we're going to do it. One that we have been working on without having it legislated is our debt to GDP ratio, which in the standard is 60%. And so we have been careful with that. However, there are other things that need to be done so that the fiscal rules will be there to restrain and constrain us, not just when times are difficult, but particularly when they are good. Because we all know how that goes. When things are flowing, we tend to go and do things we shouldn't. You know, the ladies go and buy the matching shoes with the bag and the belts. And the gentlemen go and buy the matching shoes and the belts and the briefcase. This is gender equity here. We're not going to pretend that just the ladies buy shoes and matching belts and bags. We see you, we know. So, just in the same way, when we do that, and then things get rough, and we say, you know, I should not have spent that money on those things. They look nice, but I have something now that I need to deal with, and I don't have that buffer that I need. And so in the same way, the government needs to have that kind of buffer in its operations in order to provide for the citizens. We also need to enhance economic growth. We need to accelerate our public sector investment. And this doesn't always apply to just the accessibility of funds. It also requires a degree of planning in terms of the development of the projects so that they can roll out effectively, and even proper procurement management, because government must get value for money. That is how it maintains a stable financial position. We have to also encourage economic diversification. You heard the presentation from Ms. Williams. Our sustainable island state has many aspects to it. And so when we're doing our budget, we have to look at all of the different sectors, all the areas that can stimulate growth, from construction projects to even the technical development of persons in the society in order for them to then move towards the business ventures. Increase labor productivity. And so that comes with education and the training that is required for persons to be current in the system. And so we have to ensure that we have the right skills in the right place. We're talking about electric vehicles. Who are going to repair them when we need something done? We can't always bring someone from outside. We have to be ready. We have to strengthen our climate change and disaster management efforts. This too requires significant planning and scaling up as we continue to try to reinforce, because it's not just about our infrastructure on the coastlines, it's how we build our houses, the culverts. We saw what happened with the heavy rain, and so when we are building now, we must take into consideration proper drainage, proper storage, capturing of water. All these elements come into play. And so, in terms of recommendations, we have to double our efforts to build resilience in the macroeconomy to external shocks. Like I said, we have to look towards our fiscal buffers. We have to look for our fiscal rules and have discussions on those matters. We also need to look towards the development of our Growth and Resilience Fund. We have to reduce the heavy reliance on CBI inflows. This will require some deep discussion. We have already started the process in terms of looking at our tax regime. And so in 2024, there will be greater discussion in that regard, because there has to be, like I said, a good mix in order for us to make all of the developments happen and to prepare ourselves for whatever may come down the pipeline. We don't know when another pandemic may hit. We don't know when, like we said, there are wars now. We don't know what the impact of some of it may have on us or how wide it would spread in that regard. We need to scale up our use of renewable energy and technology in the public and private sectors. I heard Ms. Williams saying that we're going to be moving to electric vehicles for the entire government. That's a discussion that needs to be had. And you have to look at the cost in regards to that as well. But we recognize from the Ministry of Finance the benefits to it. And so we're always open to discussion and proper assessment, because we don't want false stats. We have to be ready to go. We have to implement the National Development Plan and the Sustainable Island State Agenda together as a team. The funds that will be earmarked, I don't like to use that word because we don't do earmark budgeting, but we are investing heavily in the development of all of the initiatives that are being put forward. There's need, of course, to prioritize, because everything that we want to do is quite costly, and it's even more costly for a small island developing state. And so we have to carefully prioritize, and persons must be willing to share. Something the children can teach us, I hope. And so in conclusion, the Ministry of Finance remains an able and willing partner in the development of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to provide sound and credible advice. And we will be here to hear all of the questions, comments, recommendations that the audience here and online may have. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Squealy. Ms. Henry?
Good evening, everyone. Allow me to adopt the protocol that has been established by the previous speakers. It's good to see some familiar faces from the last presentation and exciting to see some new ones. And I am here to present the Economic Development Outlook for the medium term, which is 2024 to 2030. And this presentation will hopefully wrap everything up in a bow, as well as provide some context to where we are going in the future. So this is the agenda. I'm going to go do a brief discussion of the overall GDP growth in the medium term, the key industries that will attribute to this growth, speak to the National Development Planning Framework, the link between the Sustainable Island States and the NDPF, community involvement, and then a brief word of thanks. So the GDP growth in the medium term, what is the trend that we are seeing? So in the medium term, the real gross domestic product is expected to recover by 97.07% when we compare it to the 2019 baseline that is indicated in the orange. And of course, we see that we are going to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic fully by the end of 2024. So that is something we are looking forward to. So what are the key indicators that will push forward this recovery? So we have construction, tourism, transport, storage and communication, financial services, real estate, renting and business activities, public administration, the labor market, as well as wholesale and retail. So first, construction. It is projected that by the end of 2023, the construction sector will experience growth up to 97.7%. This is similar to what we are seeing for the overall GDP growth, and full recovery will occur by 2025. And this is predicated on the implementation of key economic and social infrastructure by both the public and private sector. So we're looking at the building of homes. Of course, this school is a big one that we're looking forward to, as well as the road improvement projects that we are now seeing along the island. Hotels and restaurants, we know this to be the tourism sector. So, of course, we're expecting strong recovery in the tourism sector over the medium to long term, and full recovery by the end of 2025. For those that were at the previous presentation, it would have been 2024 that we were expecting full recovery. However, now that we have gotten some new figures from this quarter, recovery is now projected to be full recovery is expected to occur in 2025. So just a slight pushback based on the figures that we are seeing. And this is in line with elevations in both air and sea arrivals, the expansion of our airlifts, as well as infrastructural developments, initiatives at both the air and seaport. Transport, storage, and communications. So the graphs are going to start to look like each other going forward, but that is a good thing. So transport, storage, and communications, similar to the previous sectors, it is expected that in 2024, the sector will recover to about 96.8% when we compare it to the baseline, and it will achieve full pre-pandemic recovery by 2025 and expand further into 2030. And this is anticipated on an average growth in the air sector by 8.9%, communications by 4.2%, sea by 17.7%, and land by 1.8%. And this is over the medium to long term. Financial services. So interestingly, this sector was one of the quickest to recover following the pandemic, with return to 2019 productivity levels occurring in 2021. However, we do not see real growth until 2022 onwards, that the sector has surpassed pre-pandemic levels. And it is going to expand further into the medium term, especially as we see the implementation of all these new online banking platforms like Dcash and others that are coming along as well. Real estate, renting, and business activities. So this was another sector that recovered quite quickly after the pandemic. So this sector is expected to keep in line with the other sectors, with full recovery to be achieved by 2023, and is expected to grow annually in the medium to long term by 1.6%. And this is based on planned public and private housing initiatives. Public administration. So the public sector remains a major player in the economy, comprising approximately 9% of GDP. In the medium term, the sector is estimated to grow to about 2.8% in 2024 and has a projected growth of about 4.5% per year in the medium term. And this is attributed to new hirings, to accommodate the development thrust and increases in salary and incremental payments as well. So government workers can start clapping. So the labor markets. So the Federation's labor force for the first 2 quarters, and you'll notice here that we do not have a projection, we're dealing with actual figures. So it ends at the half year of 2023, which is what we have information for. So for the first 2 quarters of 2023, it would have recovered to about 95.4% compared to 2019 levels. And the trajectory indicates a full recovery to be achieved by the end of this year. And this is forecasted in key economic sectors of the economy. So as they grow, we are expected the labor markets in these sectors to grow as well. Wholesale and retail. It is projected that the wholesale and retail sector will fully recover over 2019 levels by 2025 and exhibit strong growth in the medium to long term. And this is closely aligned with recovery in the tourism and construction sectors. So, in summary, the economy of St. Nevis is forecasted to record robust growth over the medium to long term, with notable developments in many sectors. The projected achievement in the economy is predicated on a high level of public, private, and domestic and foreign investments in the country. Therefore, specific attention will need to be paid to securing investments that will advance the execution of our economic development agenda as outlined in the National Development Planning Framework. So, quite quickly, because some of you may not be aware, the NDPF is envisioned to be one of our primary vehicles, along with our national determined contribution, as well as our urban development plan, that we will use to accomplish our end goal of becoming a sustainable island state. Under this plan, there are 6 development areas. They are the climate resilience, green energy transformation, economic development, human capital development, inclusivity and social protection, and institutional strengthening and partnership. And the link between the NDPF and the SIS, which I know these are a lot of acronyms being thrown around, but I promise you they are linked together and will help us to go forward as a country. So enshrined in the NDPF are the SIS pillars, which include food security, energy transition, water security, sustainable industries, sustainable settlements, circular economies, and social protections. So as you can see, both the NDPF and the SIS work together to help us to achieve, the end goal of becoming a sustainable island state. So it is all one strategy that the government will follow to become this. So what are the investments that we are going to try and endeavor towards to become an SIS? So on the energy, we're looking at geothermal and solar energy. As you know that we are already trying to, do research into geothermal energy, and we're going to seek more investments into solar energy and implement it here to reduce our dependence on the grid. Investments in upgrading the electrical connectivity between Skelec and Nevlec, which to facilitate the input of renewables. So we have to be able to not only just have the renewable sources of energy, but also be able to implement it. So from the solar farm into our grid. And investments in mixed sources of green energy, so not only sun, but also wind. For human capital, we are speaking a lot to education. So this is speaking to the curriculums that we have in schools, especially when we see TVET and NEVLEC. So that way we can develop a curricula that will create green jobs to support our energy sector. So as Ms. Quealy was saying, we have to ensure that they're not only that the current curricula has to be able to move forward with where we are going as a country. So they have to be able to fix these new, electric vehicles that are coming in. So we have to change our curricula to suit these needs. So we have to make opportunities available as well for the youth to access universities. by increasing our affiliation with reputable universities going forward. Also reform our banking operations here that they are more responsive to educational needs of young people. Also focus on the alignment of the education at high school and college levels, not only to be more green inclusive, but also to ensure that when they go out into the workforce, they're able to apply the knowledge that they would have learned in school directly into the workforce. I know that is a complaint of many employers that, oh, they come and they don't know what they're doing and you have to train them. So yes. On the economic infrastructure, so building climate resilient roads to ensure effective access for both emergency and the economic infrastructure, the building of a new green hospital and upgrading our current health facilities, the expansion and upgrade of our air and seaports, the development of a special economic zone, and the laying of infrastructure for electric vehicle uptake. On the economic development, this will include the diversification of key sectors, such as tourism. So find a way to transform our current tourism sector from what it is now into something that is more sustainable, such as wellness tourism. We have sports tourism, even, and others as well. On the agriculture, so moving towards green agriculture and industrial cropping. On the manufacturing, digital manufacturing, this is the LED chips, as well as agro-processing and development of our blue and orange economy, blue meaning marine resources, and orange being the entertainment sector. The development outlook presented here is not a finite listing, as we look towards the goal of becoming an SIS, and we will adjust our templates to meet the challenges faced. So one more slide. So what does this mean for you as a citizen? Because we would have discussed a lot of things, but you might be thinking, so why should I care? What does this have to do with me? And when I say you, I don't mean you, the individual, but perhaps your friends, your families, your community that you live in. That is what I mean by you. So for those in the construction sector, these planned capital projects will put more money in your hands, and this will mean more employment for contractors, workmen, masons, architects, and vendors that would sell to the various construction sites. For tourism, those that work in hotels, the increases in air and sea travels mean that you can see an uptick in activity, and this is especially important as our country seeks to expand our tourism product. On the wholesale and retail, so as the construction and tourism sector booms, there will be a need for goods and services. So you will see a surge in orders, cross fingers, and I encourage all of you in this room to keep abreast of the developments as you set your business plans in motion. So not just to see so I know that there are some times where you're just like, oh, I'm not feeling anything or nothing's happening. It's important that you are able to see when things are happening and to plan accordingly so you don't get left behind. So real estate renting and business activities. So like wholesale and retail, the influx of visitors means that you have a greater opportunity to increase your renting if you have homes to rent, as well as those that are engaged in business activities. So transport, storage, and communications, this will greatly benefit persons that, especially that are in the taxi and trucking services. So those persons that transport things, and more visitors by air and sea means that more tour bookings, of course. And finally, financial services. An increase in the economy means an increase in transactions and the need for insurance for businesses. Therefore, the financial sphere should expect to see some activity. And I know that I know that these sectors are specifically mentioned. However, we did not forget some perhaps not the biggest contributors, but important sectors like agriculture, which we know is a big part of a lot of communities. And these sectors, from what we see from the data, will expect economic growth. And the government is currently seeking out investments that will better enable our farmers, those persons that work in agriculture, to be able to boost productivity. So hopefully we see that reflected in going forward. Thank you. I don't have a thank you slide.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. I want to thank all of the individuals for their comprehensive presentations. We now open the floor for questions from both our live audience and those joining us online.
My name is Mark Hanley, ex-police officer for 24 years, 4 years of bailiff at the High Court. I give 27 years of service to this country. I'm into the small business now. However, I'm pleased to be here, live just down the road, came here to hear the presentation and to get a good grip of what is going on in the country because I'm into small business, and small business play a critical role in this country. At the same time, small business do not get the privilege that they do deserve. If we're going to go forward, have to look at small business properly, comprehensively. A few years ago, trying to get duty-free concession on a few items, I was informed that because of the equipment that I was bringing to sustain my security small business, is not on the duty-free list. That was disheartening to me. Other small businesses get the privilege, agriculture get the biggest discount when it comes to duty-free concession. My question or my recommendation is to have a look at security for the way forward. Businesses come to the country. Security is high priority in the country because we had a few robberies a couple of months ago and security has been a priority. So I think that we should look at security. For example, firearm, bulletproof vest, apparently is not on the duty-free list. Apart from that, I'm also pleased to small business, educating persons in small business. As recent as the 18th of this month, last week, the week before in St. Paul's. I'm waiting for them to come over in this area so they have to educate us much more about the small business going forward. And that is my presentation.
Thank you for your question/recommendation. Do we have anyone else? Can you use the mic, please?
Good night. My name is Willie. I'm compassionate about agriculture because I was there and I'm still there. But one, to get good germination, to get good crops, we have to get good seeds. Right now, we've gone backward. We're doing F1 seeds. That means first generation. F1 is first generation. Well, I know why we gone there, but I won't say it here, right? Because I was there, I know why. So number one, we need new seeds, not F1 seed, because it's just like peanuts. I don't know, long time ago, people will say sucking nuts, you plant them back, but when you plant sucking nuts, you don't get back good nuts. So you have to plant proper nuts, like the one where you eat, to plant to get proper nuts. That's the way it goes. If you do F1 seeds, you don't get good crops in tomato, pepper, no kind of crops if F1 seeds. So therefore, we have to get proper seeds. Second thing is, okay, if somebody bring him some seeds, because agriculture don't have it on their website, they will take it from you, where it's unfair, right? Because proper farmers, people who farm and really know how to farm, they don't want F1 seeds. And they're bringing their own seeds. I don't think agriculture should take them away. Quarantine, take them away, because it's on their websites where they do. So that we have to look into that. The second thing is the water in the forest. I mean, I heard a lot of people talk about the water in the mountain is wasting. It's not wasting. They establish the mountain, because if you have dry mountain, I mean, forests give rain, and what happened, we're not educated about trees. Trees bring rain. And we cut down all our trees in the mountain, in the forest, so therefore, that's why the place is so hot, right? Then, well, me and Mr. Brown were going to establish something, some food trees in the mountain for the monkeys, go back up the mountain, but actually, I was moved home. So actually, that never get off. So what happened with monkeys again, we have to plant food trees in the mountain that the monkeys then to go back up. And that is my presentation at the moment.
Thank you, sir. So we have I think I'm competing with the audience. Thank you. We have the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Agriculture in the House. I'm not certain if you would like to make a comment on what was just said. Mr. Fleming?
Good night, everyone. And so just wanted to respond to my good friend, Willie. And as it relates to quarantine, I think Willie, who used to work at the Department of Agriculture, would know well why we do something like that. I mean, we have a list of approved companies that we accept seeds from. And if the company that you're planning to import seeds from, they're not on the website or they're not approved, we usually confiscate the seeds. But what a lot of farmers usually do, they don't like to go through the process, which is to apply for an import permit or license, right? So when farmers go through the process, the Department of Agriculture now have the opportunity to go and review the company so we can give some form of approval. So if that is happening, it's because the farmers are not following the process. And in relation to the F1 seeds, I'm not sure if Willie is speaking about all the seeds or his recent challenge that he has had with the tomatoes. Mr. Willie, that's what you're speaking about? Okay, we'll look into that and improve the seed varieties. All right?
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Can we have the mic at the front, please?
Good evening, everyone. Hope all is well. A few comments, some questions in between you'll pick out. To the first presenter, I think the presentation was a bit too abstract for the audience. And so maybe for the next time, you would want to consider the audience and try to, quote unquote, dumb down that presentation so we can get some milk from it. The director, senior director in finance, made a comment about the revenue mix, right? That it is perhaps not the right mix of revenue shares. And that is true, of course. But if that is not the right mix, then what do you recommend or what do you propose as the right mix and how do we get there? Next question. Is our SIS plan vis-a-vis within the global system, or are we just considering it within the vacuum of St. Kitts and Nevis? I didn't hear anything about technological advancement as it relates to automation and artificial intelligence or partnership with our diplomatic ties such as Republic of China, Taiwan, the United Arab Emirates. So it caused me to wonder, as it relates to our sustainable island state agenda, is there a template model of best practices which we are hoping to, well, take best practices from, or is it that we're going OG with this thing? As there's nothing new under the sun, right? As it relates to tourism, are there plans for the construction of any new hotels within the next 5 years? Also, as it relates to tourism, I do believe tourism will be the industry to play a very critical part as it relates to our sustainable island state and where revenue is concerned. I haven't heard anything about luxury tourism or the yachting industry. Again, as it relates to tourism, are we going OG with this? Or is it that we are looking at other small island states nearby, such as St. Bart's, and see what we can pull from them? Finally, the creative economy. There is no representation at the table for the creative economy. But again, I do believe that the creative economy will also be one of those ministries to play a very critical role in our sustainable island states as it relates to revenue generation and financial independence for us and our people. And then a final recommendation, perhaps consultations, ministry specific, instead of having, the statistician, which is good, and then Miss Williams with all these numbers, and then the presentations go on, and we lose question, we lose train of thoughts. So what if we can have the Minister of Tourism and maybe a matching ministry, and we just have that discussion for that ministry, creative economy, that discussion for that ministry, etc., etc. Thanks.
Thanks for your comments, questions.
Oh, okay. It's all known. It's all known. Okay, I would like to thank the young lady for her comments and questions. We are always open, I believe, to all the observations. That is the purpose of why we're here. In regards to the revenue mix, this is basically an engagement to also get ideas from persons in the society. It's not just about what the Ministry of Finance thinks. And you will also recall that I mentioned that we are already looking at our tax regime. And so there are going to be discussions coming in the new year in regards to how exactly we can go about either streamlining, improving, and finding new means of revenue generation. And so I hope to see you there when this happens. And all I can say is that it will be done in the coming year. And so, like I said, this is an engagement, and so we are open to discussion and recommendations from others, and so we'll be doing that going forward.
Hi, good evening.
1 second, please.
Good night again, everyone, and thank you to my fellow Kittishan for her input. Let me emphasize that the Sustainable Island State Agenda will also include community engagement. Within the Ministry of Environment, Climate Action, and Constituency Empowerment, there is going to be a local governance framework that is shored up for you to suggest, design, plan, and advocate for projects at the community level. So all of those initiatives that you mentioned, those interventions, will be included in our Sustainable Island State Agenda, for your information.
Thanks. Ms. Williams, do we have any more questions? You want to talk?
Just to speak to the young lady's question regarding the hotel industry, as tourism industry, as well as some other things, the creative economy. I cannot speak for certain to the construction of the new hotels within the next 5 years. I would have to liaise with Mr. Phipps, who deals with the input of data like that. However, regarding the diversification of the tourism products, so you would have mentioned luxury tourism and the yachting industry. Of course, the government endeavors to try and diversify our tourism product. It is one of our goals as we seek to push forward the NDPF. So we will look to different types of tourism aspects that we can reach into. If we can get a hand in everything, that would be perfect. Because, you know, when one sector, well, when the cycle fork, the cruise industry goes down, we can depend on another kind of tourism. So it is important that we seek to diversify our tourism product because of that. With regards to the creative industry, the economic development portion of the NDPF, we will try to diversify, which will include the orange economy, which is the entertainment sector, and we will rely a lot on the creative industry for their input and their suggestions regarding how best we can outfit the entertainment sector into St. Kitts to maybe rival our regional partners and hopefully even our global partners.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. We have the permanent secretaries for the creative economy and small business and entrepreneurship, Ms. Sider and Ms. Taylor. We will invite them to say something. Ms. Sider, you're up first.
Good night, everyone. Good night. Thank you for your comments as regard to the creative economy. The creative economy is fairly a new ministry. You would remember previously we had a ministry called the Ministry of Talent Development. What we're doing is to be structuring that because the objectives of that ministry does not fit into what the creative economy is meant to do. One of our biggest challenges for the creative economy is identifying who are our creatives. So what we're doing in the creative economy now, we are presently encouraging a registration drive. It's called the Creative Catalog. There are 3 tiers to it. There's the basic tier, that is free registration. There is the standard tier. There's a cost for that registration of $250 per year. There is the premium, and that is $450 per year. Now, being registered with the creative economy opens the doors for a lot of opportunities for you. There's access to training, there's access to grants. And speaking of grants, in the coming year, we are going to launch what we call the Creative Economy Fund. No, you can apply for funding under that, but you must be registered. You must be registered. Now, I talked about free registration and paid registration. Whether you're freely registered or you're paid registrant, then you have entitlement to apply for these grants. If you're basic registrant, then you can apply for up to $2,000. If you're standard registrant, you can apply for up to, I think it's $5,000. If you're a premium registrant, you can apply for up to $15,000, sorry. But the process is a very stringent process. It's not as simple that you send in, you come and you request the funds and you get it. You have to go through a whole bunch of, there's a whole criteria, and Miss Queely can tell you about it. She can testify to it. There is a stringent criteria, so we encourage all of our creatives to come to the Department of the Creative Economy and register. We don't know who the creatives are unless you come to the department and register. So I encourage everybody, if you're creative, it doesn't matter if you think your whatever your skill is doesn't have any value, we encourage you to come. And one more thing I should add, when the grants, they open you up to, you can use the grants for 3 things. You can either request technical assistance, because sometimes we think that assistance is always financial. It's not always. So you can request technical assistance. You can request product development assistance, or you can request product enhancement assistance. So I invite you again to come into the creative economy, register, and then you can get all the assistance in whatever your business is.
Thanks, Ms. Sider. Ms. Taylor?
Good evening, everyone. I think my input would be related to Mr. Mark. Per se, he mentioned about the duty-free concession for your security business. What I can say is that the ministry is guided by the 2009 Small Business Development Act, and we would have been doing quite a bit of work in terms of consultation with our stakeholders, because we realized that act is about 14 years old, and we realized that there's need for amendments to those acts. And you are referring to the priority area why you probably was disqualified. And we realized that there are many gaps, and we are reviewing the priority areas to make sure that there is inclusivity for all sectors. We are also reviewing the concession policies to make sure that every sector benefits from it. And I think people think that the development of small businesses is just concession related, and the ministry does so much more other than concessions when it comes to the development of small businesses. We have been going out into the various communities. I think we were over in this section, this area. Keys. No, we're going around, and next year we're gonna do a next round. We are actually, this month we are gonna be in Sandy Point, and then we are gonna be in the town area again. But with that being said, we do a lot in capacity building for the small business, because it's critically important for them, because we like to say funding without training is a recipe for disaster, right? So there's a lot of support that we give to the small business persons. I would encourage you to visit the office and see what other assistance are available to you. I know we have a big agenda for 2024. Mr. Odain would have mentioned the development of a small business development center that would cater to the needs, the basic services that are required to expand the sector. We're going to be doing work in terms of the improving the doing business in St. Kitts and Nevis. Persons complain a lot that they have to be get all over the place before they could establish their business. And we're saying we're going to work with the different departments and the ministry to see what initiative we can put in place to reduce those wait times and to reduce those tedious process and increase the likelihood of just make the sector more attractive for persons. So I hope that answers your questions, and we are always there to serve you. So we are now located at the Port Zante building number 16. So I will encourage you to visit us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Before we ask any more questions, let me recognize the presence of the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, National Security, Citizenship and Immigration, Health and Social Security, the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew. Prime Minister, thank you for joining us. We understand that you had a very urgent issue to deal with. We will now field our next question. That's it?
Good night.
You want to ask a question?
All right, good night, everyone. So I'm a creative. I'm just kind of tuning in. I'm in multiple group chats with other creatives and persons who are interested in being creative, but there is an inhibition or fear to get a business license, right? And I signed up as a premium. I'm waiting to hear back from the ministry, but I signed up. And I'm in a group with about 30 photographers. 3 to 4 of us have a business license. I've tried to encourage them to get business licenses. How can there be almost like a secondary category of business that can be created? It doesn't have to be this official business license, but a category of business, in a sense, that is for persons who are venturing into that direction, but not necessarily fully committed. I don't know if that's making sense. How can we, okay, I'll give an example. I know someone that started, because I'm saying this, I know someone that started a business, right, recently. They have a day job. There's different categories of business licenses, right? She's a consultant. She had to pay $1,000 for her category to get that business license, right? In my mind, as someone who wants to get into business, I'm not going to pay $1,000 when I've made no money as yet. Yes, you may see it as an investment, but someone who's sacrificing. Because for me, when I first started doing business, I took a sacrifice. I took a loan to buy my first camera. Someone may not have the ability to do that. They may not be willing to take that step. Because it's starting a business is not easy. You have to have a certain level of confidence and, so if there could be almost like a beginner class business maybe, like something that helps them lead up to an official business license. If some step in between could be created, I don't know, I'm just making a suggestion because all of these guys out there, they're working, they're making a little change on this side, but yet they're not willing to get a business license because they see it as this. No, you can't say it's on them. We have to, I think maybe there needs to be an information drive, something to encourage. Because trust me, there's so many creatives. They know about the site. We've all talked about the grant, the 30 of us. And they're not willing to take that extra steps. I think something needs to be done maybe in between to see how we could, bridge that gap. That's just my contribution, all right?
Thank you, Mr. Bradshaw. So I know that the PS for Creative Economy is here. However, I saw the FinSec edging to answer your question, so I will invite her to do such.
Just a small comment in response in that to say that this is an area where we have been discussing at the ministry, and during 2024, we will be doing some work on revisions to the categories of business, because as the creative economy expands, we realize that there are some categories that are not exactly captured by the way that we are categorizing businesses at this time. So you can look forward to that. But having said that, we also want to encourage those persons who are entering into the business sphere to do what is the correct thing, and that is to be licensed, because this is by law. Once you're transacting business, you ought to be licensed. But we have heard you, and even before this evening, we have been in discussions, and so more to come. We want to engage you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, FinSec. PS, you want to say anything?
It would just be to echo what the FinSec would have said, because we too recognize that the tax category, the tax classifications do not truly reflect the creatives. So what the FinSec said is very much adequate.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
Just to add just a little bit, because I think the categorization is one problem, but I think the formalization of the business is a second issue, because most businesses feel like they could just take this thing as a side hustle, right, and don't formalize. Like they just mentioned earlier, Ms. Queely, people forget that they want to, have certain concession policies, certain programs, but if we don't raise the revenues to have these programs, where would the monies come from? And you would be, how should I put it? I think persons should value their business more and take that step and don't have anybody babying them and pulling them hand to get in that right direction. But what I can say from the ministry standpoint, we have been having training session in terms of basic business consultations where we invite inland revenue, social security, SKELEC, just to, provide information to persons to get them into the formal sector. Just recently, a lady on the side of the road that has a tray came to the ministry, want to know, where do I sign up? I want to have a legit business. So if somebody on the side of the road could make that bold step, I don't see why the creatives are being hesitant. Of course, we are always willing to hear from them and provide the additional support with them, but I am really encouraging persons to make that step and formalize your business.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah. Good evening. Barry Daniel. Every time I hear the word sustainability, it irks me. It irritates me. Because here we are, I'm not seeing it as yet, but I'm optimistic. Because we speak about it, but we don't practice what we preach. And I could recall back in 2017, I sat in the CTO conference that was held here at OTI with some other 52 other countries. And we were digesting pre and post Hurricane Maria and Irma. And when I got up and I made my presentation, Clive Bactus told me he needed the document that I was reading from. I told him there was no document. It was a free flow for me because it's my passion. It's something that is within me. I could have been a teacher, probably a lawyer, a doctor. I chose to stay dirty because the dirty work is what actually feeds the nation. Now here we are, we have a tourism industry which is very fragile. A former minister of tourism, Dwyer Astafan, once said, one of the hardest things is to convince a ship to come into our port. But the easiest thing is for them to pull out. When we look back at the Brimstone Hill fiasco a few years ago, you realize we were crippled. And after that CTO conference meeting, I drafted a document where it reached as far as Nevis to the Premier. And basically what I was saying in that document, let us try to merge tourism and agriculture. Let them work hand in hand. Too many of our cruise passengers, as former president of the Taxi Association also, passengers come here and they ask for fresh produce. They want the black pudding. We're going to tell them, come in here on Tuesday, wait until Friday, because the person who normally cooks that is not here. We need to merge the industries. Now, we have the orange economy now. You go on the strip seems as though it's only promoted around music festival, December time, and it spills over to January. You drive to the strip during the week, it's like a ghost town. Persons travel to St. Kitts, Nevis, a different culture. Persons could have locked themselves in their room at home and stay home. But they hear about St. Kitts, they want to feel the vibes, they want to lime, as we would say. So you go over the strip, 10 o'clock, they say, oh, let's shut down the bars because that's enough. That's no nightlife. So what's going to happen to the creative economy? What's going to happen to the DJs, the bands? They're not going to be getting any spillover because they have nobody to entertain. We have our folklore, the masquerades. Why can't we put them down at Black Rocks? Why can't we use the Eco Park to enhance the product that we have here? In talking with some of the cruise lines, we have the power, like Ben Jack said, the power lies in you. Because we can convince them to stay here. Because the thing about the ships, if they realize they can sell tours that they could stay here during the nighttime, we'll get it done. But because there's nothing else going on, the train finished running at a certain time, the zip line is over, there's nothing else. We can be creative and get something done. I started a project in 2017 where I took my sweat, tears, at the amount of tapes I went through. The amount of teeth pulling, I don't know how I can make them a dentist yet. I wrote a document, went for a grant, and when the small grants responded to me, they told me that two reasons why I didn't get the grant. One, the group was recently formulated. And it's because of that conference that stimulated my mind. And two, I had no document to show whether the land was leased, rented. I went to all kind of offices. They had several meetings. And it was a lot of, here, go to this person, go to that person. It frustrates you. And if you're not strong enough, it really just depresses you. But for me, I don't give up. I don't give up. If you look at the Prime Minister today, I always call him John Cena, because he never gave up. And that's just the way life have to be. It's not going to be easy, it's going to be challenging. I labeled the project I was doing Tales of the Estate. And basically, it was teaching agriculture and livestock to enhance sustainability. And it was directed for our children, the future, whereby children could have come home, because you have all these SBAs and stuff like that. You put children inside a room, they're going to be watching each other and playing. But if you put them in a nice garden setting, a tropical garden setting, their mindset is going to be on the plants and stuff like that, so it's going to help them. We have cable and all these places giving free Wi-Fi to enhance our education product. Why can't we invest much more into our youths? Pump that money into the youths. Put it in agriculture. I don't think that we should just be driving persons around the island. We should be able to pull off the road and go and get some sugar cake in somebody's backyard. That's the island experience. We should be able to go to a farm that's even accessible by a normal sedan. Because this is how governments and persons get funding. Because they are persons, they don't come around with name tags. So you won't say that's the president of the USA. They'll just come around and they just scope in and they say, wow, boy, we went St. Kitts and we went through road there, boy, but they might look like they're willing. Let's talk to who we can talk to and see if we could pump some money into that sector. And it's going to be a spillover for everybody. Because over the years, you've realized that the sustenance of any economy is small business. And with small business keep on closing their doors, what's going to happen? You're going to have foreign investors coming here and taking over. And then here we're going to go into Parliament again to talk about consumer protection, when we are not being protected as normal citizens. I could go on, but I leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your input and note that it will not go on deaf ears. Any more questions?
Good evening, everybody. Ike. I want to put forward something that has been making the rounds on talk shows for many years, and that has to do with the ease of doing business. From listening to some of the comments from the folks here tonight, you can see where that is an issue. Where you want to access certain services from the government and it takes you a pretty good while. You have to go to somebody's desk and then come back on to somebody's desk and then go so, come back so. And that to me hinders certain businesses, especially those businesses that we're trying to boost when it comes to having this sustainable dream, especially in the orange economy. I think that the time has come for us to have a change of mindset when it comes to how we view the orange and creative economy. Now, while I understand what Cleon was trying to say, I think for me, I could say to my fellow creatives that having a business license gives you access to certain services from the government side of things. Just like the PSA, if you don't sign up, then how can you access certain things? So I would encourage them to do that. Take your business serious, take it to a different level, sign up. And I think coupled with that, the ministries could do a better job of communicating what those benefits would be if you get regularized, sign up and do certain things. I've been in business for nearly 20 years, and in the past 3-4 years, I think I've learned more than I've learned in the past 20 years of doing business. But all in all, it helps. But I would just say that we need to do a better job at the ease of doing business. I don't know if we could incorporate the AI and the technology into doing business with the government, make it an e-business, I don't know, something to that effect, where if I'm in, let's say, California, and I want to start a business in St. Kitts, I should be able to sit behind my computer desk and get my business started, get my business license going, get whatever documents I need to get, and get the ball rolling so that I could start to make money, I could start to hire people and get the economy really bubbling. So that would just be my recommendation going forward if we want to really achieve this sustainable island state. We need to change our thinking. We need to change our approach to a lot of things. The financial sector, for example, Pierce Sider would have said that there are many grants that we can access, but from the financial sector, especially those in private, when somebody show up from, let's say, a DJ or a sound engineer or probably a farmer, we are not looked at the same way as if somebody would show up for a lawyer or a supermarket or a bus. You know, we are frowned upon. And I guess that has to do with how we conduct business as well, because most of us don't really have the accounting background and the information to show. So I think that's another step that we could do, coupled with us changing the mindset of the financial services when it comes to the creative economy. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Flanders. Yes, Pierce Sider.
Mr. Flanders would have said about the not being able to access information. Apart from coming into the office, you can always log on our website, creatives.kn, and all the information you want would be there.
Thank you. We'll have one more question. Yes.
Sorry to be back, but I was just looking at a photograph I took here of the smart journey. And number 2M says, eliminate PAP and reduce number living below poverty line. Now that concerns me because in my mind, naturally, if you're going to eliminate PAP, then it should be eliminate PAP and eliminate poverty. Just something to look back on. You're welcome.
Thank you for your comment. If there are no more questions, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and for yes? Do you have a question?
I do. I came late, so I wasn't sure if the questions that were being asked were just for the budget or it was open for other community concerns.
Okay, so we are discussing the 2024 budget.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Does your question involve the budget? Is it? Okay, go ahead and ask your question. Go ahead.
So good evening, everyone. So my question is not really directly to the budget. When I looked at the flyer, it said that there was going to be a part on community concern. So my comment or question is more about the community concern. So I live in Bellevue currently, and in Bellevue, we are a small community where our housing, the housing is spread out along the coastline and above the the engine track, there's no animal farms, goats in particular. So we have been experiencing, I guess, environmental impacts from the animal waste and excretions that are in the pens in Bellevue. I have written to the Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Environmental Health Officer, the District Environmental Health Supervisor, and the Vector Control Officer from our district has taken our complaints more than once. Our first complaint was last year. I'm a person who has respiratory issues, so I've already been hospitalized from infections that in part is coming from this environmental pollution. I also took the steps to review the Public Health Act, and it clearly states that any type of operation like this, cannot be done within a residential area. There's even a certain distance from residential area that this type of operation should be done. And, currently, based on my own measurements, that is a violation of the Public Health Act. So really my comment is, how can the residents of Bellevue, myself, get some action on this? Even in the past couple of weeks, there has been a lot of rainfall, and when there's rainfall, the smell, the stench, and most importantly, the pollution and the impact on the health is increased. So that's my community concern right there. I'd also like to add that I did write to the land management unit at Agriculture seeking assistance with confirming whether the persons who are operating are approved by the Ministry of Agriculture to be operating there, and two, if they are or are not, and there's a need to relocate them, if they can facilitate them. Again, I have not gotten any responses, and I'm just seeking assistance in our community.
Okay, thank you. We note your concerns, and they will be passed on to the relevant bodies. Okay, so with that said, we are at the end of our community consultation. I want to thank you for your questions and your comments, your recommendations, and they were all recorded and will be taken into consideration. At this moment, I'd like to invite Mr. Philip to give his vote of thanks. Okay, Mr. Philip, before you proceed, the Prime Minister would like to say something. Have the mic, please.
I thank you very much, Mr. Philip. Good night to all. I want to recognize, of course, the Deputy Prime Minister, the AG, Minister Dr. Clark, Mr. Philip, Ambassador Leon Natter from this area, and also Ambassador Kenneth Douglas and all the other officials within the government and the community members, and those, of course, who are at the head table. I happened to reach a bit late tonight because our colleague had an emergency, and so we want to wish our colleague well. The reason why we are having this meeting, and I'll be very quick, is that it is important that an important activity such as a budget, no government can function without a budget. A budget is a legal document that has to be passed in Parliament. If it is not passed in Parliament, you don't have a budget. And if you don't have a budget, any spending becomes illegal outside of the framework of a budget. And if you don't have that, you don't have a functioning government. And if such an activity is so critical and important, then it means, therefore, that the people must have an opportunity to participate in the development of that budget. Hence, we are taking the budget on the road. I think it is important that our citizens become educated, and many of them are already educated, and be given the opportunity to make meaningful input into what should be in the budget. After all, the budget will determine a lot of what would be influencing your lives, your livelihood, the way you live. And therefore, you must have that opportunity to participate. And so your comments, your questions, all of those were noted, and they are very much welcome. And we hope that in the future, this year we are doing 3, which is the first time we are doing it, and in the future we can take it around the country, the island, the federation should go to Nevis also, so that we can have the input of all of our people. For when we have more of our citizens participating in such activities, it only means a better outcome. So to finally say, with respect to the sustainable island state, it is critical. This is an existential threat. This is no joke. Our very existence as a thriving country, thriving communities, that existence is very much threatened. We are expecting over the coming years to have stronger hurricanes, more frequent hurricanes. Those are the acute impact from climate change. And getting 1 or 2 category 5s, which will be very, very possible when the temperature of the world goes above 1.5 degrees above the baseline. So that is the message that we want to send. And therefore, your participation is critically important. And so as we build the sustainable island state, it is really to create a country that would adapt to the changes, that would be resilient to the changes, and to make sure that all our citizens have an opportunity to grow and thrive. And that is why we are taking the budget on the road. As you can see, it is built on 7 pillars, but we come to hear your input. This is only a framework. You might tell us there need to be an 8th one, or 7 is too much, we might need to reduce it. But one of the pillars that is part of the Sustainable Island State framework is the pillar to do with wealth creation. And much of what was mentioned about small businesses and creative economy and the tourism and expanding the tourism and dealing with the issue of poverty is really dealing with how can we improve the financial situation of our people and help our people to grow wealth. That is a fundamental part of what we are trying to achieve as well. And so I finally say that we are happy for your input, we are happy for your suggestions, we are happy for your questions. As we move along, this discussion will become more robust, and we welcome that so that we can have the best outcome possible. For as this world is being threatened by man's activity, we in the small countries are affected most, even though we contribute the less to this climate change and all of its consequences, such as the seaweed on the beaches, disappearance of beaches. For example, Koi Hotel no longer has a beach, and they cannot, of course, advertise as a hotel with a beach. That is already affecting the tourism industry because that is affecting their product. With the seaweed, people are saying, are the beaches as clean and serene as they used to be? With stronger hurricanes, should we divert our vacation and not come to the Caribbean anymore? With the insidious changes of climate change, more mold in buildings, heat in buildings, in here is a bit hot. Now you have to look at how are we going to convert our buildings to more, to deal with the present situation. Look at our hospital. It is our aim to build a new hospital, not because we want to build one, but because we have to build one. Because the hospital as it stands was not built to deal with the situation that we are dealing with, the issue of climate change. The drought that we are dealing with. You know how many persons call me per day? Dr. Joe ain't got no water. It is because the rain is just not falling, which is as a result of climate change and the El Nino pattern as well, all culminating into creating the drought situation. So basically, what I want to say tonight is that St. Kitts and Nevis, we are facing a different reality, a polycrisis, wars, inflation of prices, climate change, and fuel cost, all these things happening exactly at the same time. But I really think, and we think as a team, that the answers reside with our people. We can come up with our homegrown solutions to deal with the issue of climate change. And our first attempt is to put it in the framework of what we call the sustainable island state. And I lastly say now, with all of what I've just said, there's great hope because we are strong and resilient people. We have done it already and we can do it again. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Mr. Philip.
Kind of had to go after that. Greetings, everyone, men, women, boys, girls, everyone within the sound of my voice. Good evening. Allow me to adopt the protocol that has been so eloquently and frequently updated by our speaker, Ms. Matthew. My name is Stephen Philip, and I'm representing the Ministry of Finance with this community outreach we are having. Let me begin this vote of thanks, by quoting Miss Adrienne Clarkson, the former Governor General of Canada. Each of us is cutting a stone, erecting a column, or cutting a piece of stained glass in the construction of something bigger than ourselves. And that is no better represented by the activities being held by this government. We are trying to make a more sustainable island, We are trying to better the nation. And I would like to thank our guests, P.S. Williams, our statistician, Mr. Agard, our senior director, Madam Queely, and our economist, Ms. Henry. And I would like to also thank the media team, the organizers of this event, and most importantly, those of you in the audience and those of you online. You are the ones that will help what we do here tonight make or break the future of our island and our federation. And with that, thank you. Thank you all, especially you, Mr. Prime Minister, because we know you've had a busy evening already, and I wish you all a safe trip home.
Thank you, Mr. Philip. But let me especially thank the PSs for being here tonight. Your attendance and your responses to the questions and comments were timely and very much appreciated. On your way out, there is light refreshment, so I suggest you make use of them. Thank you and have a good night.